You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts on Netroots Radio or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for October 8th, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we are focused on the future. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Hey, Blue Gal.
Hi, Driftglass. After last Thursday's show, we received many reports that Steve Allen was the original host of The Tonight Show and not Jack Parr. But since we do not allow fact-checking on this show, this dispute must remain unresolved as we focus on the future.
I wish I could do an echoey voice. Focus on the future. That's right, Blue Gal. Whether it's 30 years ago or a decade ago or a year ago or even 1 minute ago, the past is gone and there's no point dwelling on it because, let's face it, the past is scary. It's very scary, Blue Gal. It's where all the bodies are buried. It's full of things that happened, and people said things then, and things those people definitely don't want brought back into the conversation. Bringing up the past is almost like grave robbery, Blue Gal. And everyone agrees, I think we can all agree, grave robbery is wrong. It's gravely wrong, as a matter of fact. In fact, if you asked me what the show opening was this week that you just said 5 minutes ago, I have to say, shut up. That's in the past. Why can't you move on, Blue Gal? And I'd be right to say so.
No, Driftglass. Telling your wife to shut up is very rude and wrong. And
no.
it's mean.
No, you are wrong, Blue Gal. But I told you that in the past. So you're actually at fault here for bringing it up in the first place. So let's just move on together into the future, shall we?
That's the biggest fight we've ever had in 15 years together. I apologize if that was triggering to anybody who's been in a marriage like that. I have. So has Driftglass. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on.
But
that
you
was in the past.
But you mentioned 15 years of marriage, most of which took place in the past, Blue Gal. Again, you go violating the most important rule.
Oh, gosh. We've been married 13 years, Driftglass, and together for almost 15. All right.
Yeah.
As you might know, once a week at an undisclosed location here, we play a little game called Would It Make Any Difference If Trump Did X?
It's a great game. It's a very
easy game to learn, and it's even easier to win.
Yeah.
Because the answer is always the same. We gather the most cynical people we know, and in turn, each player asks this question to the player on his left. Would it make any difference if Trump did? And the player can make up pretty much anything they like so long as it doesn't defy the laws of physics. The player on the left says, no, and then turns to the player on their left and repeats the question with whatever batshit scenario they can come up with.
See, it's an awesome game.
It's an awesome game. And then they say no, and it goes on. The game goes on until it gets boring, and one player leaves the rally early to go to a football game or something. And one player challenges the scenario as so ludicrous that it's impossible to imagine that it wouldn't make a difference.
Right. Two ways the game can end. One player bails. One player finally says, that people would care about. That would change things.
Yeah. But usually the answer is always no.
Almost always no.
Last week's second to last question in the game, I know we're talking about the past here, but last week's second to last question was, would it make any difference if Trump joked about the guy who got killed at his rally? The answer is no.
The answer is no.
This week from Raw Story, quote, Trump regaled donors with jokes about rally-goer killed by would-be assassin. Leaked audio. Donald Trump mocked the widow of his supporter killed by a would-be assassin's bullet at one of his rallies, according to a leaked audio recording of him speaking to donors in Colorado. The former president's dinner guests erupted in laughter as he quipped about the woman grieving her slain husband after he presented her with a check. Now, was this one of these giant, Ed McMahon checks?
The giant, I didn't vote for infrastructure, but I'm taking credit for it checks,
right?
those kind of checks.
Type of check. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm guessing it had to be. I'm guessing
yeah.
it required. Yeah.
For her murdered husband. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
According to the recording. And he suggested that some of the donors' wives would gladly trade their husbands' lives for money. Reported The Guardian.
Yeah.
So they're going to get millions of dollars. But the woman, the wife, this beautiful woman, I handed her the check, Trump told the appreciative audience. We handed her the check. And she said, this is so nice and I appreciate it, but I'd much rather have my husband. Yeah. Now, I know some of the women in this room wouldn't say the same.
Because it's 1952.
Unquote. Has that horrifying behavior made any difference to Trump's voters, to the New York Times, to the Never Trumpers? Nope. Sure hasn't.
Nope. Of course not.
Let's play again, Driftglass.
Everything is as it was. So that was the second to last question, the penultimate question, if you will. The last question in last week's quiz, the final question was, would it make any difference if Trump openly embraced Nazi eugenics race science garbage? And as I recall, the response was, oh, come on now. That's ridiculous. Even Trump isn't stupid enough to do something like that. And then that player was asked again, because the name of the game is, would it make any difference if he did it, would it matter? And they answered, okay, fine. If that happened, yeah, it would matter. That would change things. Game over. I'm done. I'm going to get a beer. However, this week from the Daily Beast, quote, Donald Trump goes off the rails with claim that some races have murder gene. I believe this in all caps. We got a lot of bad genes in our country right now, the GOP presidential nominee told radio host and cyborg sent from the future to destroy America, Hubert von Hewitt, unquote. Of course, first, Trump warmed up by calling Kamala Harris a communist, who was a secret communist plan to do communism. And then, of course, quote, how about allowing people to come to an open border, 13,000 of which were murderers. Many of them murdered far more than one person, and they are now living happily in the United States, he said. And now a murderer, I believe this, it's in their genes. He added, we've got a lot of bad genes in our country right now, unquote. Trump then went on to share his thoughts about the Jews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just juxtapose those two quite accidentally, I'm sure, and how much they owed him. All while Hugh Hewitt just sat there nodding and smirking his demented robot smirk. So let's just do a quick recap on this very subject. Donald Trump says American Jews are disloyal if they don't support him. Elon Musk says Jews are importing hostile foreign hordes. Tucker Carlson says Jews are funding white genocide. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene says Jews control the weather. So the question the game asks is, has this made any difference? Of course not. Will it? You'll have to tune in next week to find out, boys and girls. Same bat time, same bat station. No.
By next week, this week will be in the past, Driftglass, and we're looking toward the future.
Oh, shit, you're right. I'm sorry. Just negate everything I just said as it was in the past. Therefore, it does not exist.
If we sound cynical at this point, with 29 days left to go in this election cycle, honest to God. Crazy Uncle Liberty on steroids. And Donald Trump is simply reflecting what his base wants to hear.
Right. And they're applauding, and he's ratcheting it up every time they clap, and they give him money every time.
And if you are getting furious about this, especially this FEMA stuff, which is going to get somebody killed, and it's going to get his supporters killed because they're going to believe that no one's helping them.
Yep.
And that they need to hunker down in a Cat 6 hurricane, which I know at this point doesn't exist, but they're talking about it. They're talking about creating a new category for these hurricanes that are going to happen. And somebody is going to get seriously hurt by all of this. But, and that infuriates me. And I told you before we started rehearsing the show how depressed I was, because it's just nuts. But look, what I see in all of this, it's like when a kid in the back seat, in the car seat, throws a tantrum. And the mom is just totally calm because mom realizes it's nap time. Right. And that the tantrum isn't about anything but being desperate for a nap. all of this crap that's going on, and this is going to get worse before it goes away.
It'll get worse after the election.
It's going to just be deep, deep shit over and over again, being tossed into the national conversation, whatever they can do. And the reason that's happening is it has nothing to do with whatever they're saying, and everything to do with a desperate attempt to hold on to some enthusiasm within their base.
Right.
Every time I hear this stuff, I need to remind myself, okay, why would someone say that? Why would someone who's running a campaign or part of a campaign go that low? And the reason they're going that low is they've lost enthusiasm within and among their own supporters. People are leaving rallies. People aren't tuning in. People aren't watching Hannity as much as they were before. And it's because it's ugly.
This show might get canceled.
Right. It's just, it's everything is ugly, and it's easier to turn on Masked Singer or The Voice or watch football. Mm-hmm. And, my colleague Capper was saying, who throws a rally in Wisconsin and shows up an hour before a Packers game's about to start? Of course, people are going to leave early. Yep. And it's an entirely incompetent campaign to begin with. And then they see the internal polling and they realize, if we don't appeal to Nazi Uncle Liberty,
right?
And that's what we're trying to hold on to, Nazi Uncle Liberty, and make him get to the polls.
Right.
And everything that we do and all of our activities and everything that comes out of this campaign has to appeal to Nazi Uncle Liberty.
And let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of Nazi Uncle Liberties out there.
There's in the Republican Party, I would say the Republican Party is probably 65 to 70% Nazi Uncle Liberty.
Yeah. I remember doing
of different ages.
This cracked me up this morning. We were listening to a guy named Keith Olbermann. I think that's how you pronounce it. Oldman, something like that.
He repeats his stories a lot, you know?
And he was talking about the percentage in the party, the percentage of gun nuts, the percentage of this. I'm like, I did a pie chart of that, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
13 years ago? It hasn't changed. The percentages haven't changed. It's one big pie. But it really is, there's nothing left inside the Republican Party but degenerates and weirdos and Nazis and grifters and morons. Yeah. And there's a lot of those people in this country, and you can thank Fox News and hate radio and the Republican Party for that to a large extent. But they can't afford to lose any of those people. They have to lock them all down. They have to
lock them down in order to prevent a rout. Yeah. Because if those people are bored or just think they can do the election after football season is over, because they're not focused on when election day is, and no one is spending any money to tell them that when election day is, like we are. I mean, our get out the vote on our side is really solid.
It is. The campaign is doing really well.
And it's doing really well all the way down to the local level. And we're going to talk about that next.
Yeah.
Because we went to Iowa this weekend.
We did. For you. We did it for you.
I insisted on going to Iowa. Yes. Well, here's the deal. Driftglass and his siblings went to Burlington, Iowa a few months ago for a weekend.
Last year.
Yeah. It was a while back, but not too long ago. And Driftglass's sister was born in Burlington, Iowa. And your grandparents were in Burlington, Iowa. And your parents dated and met and did things in Burlington, were in school, taught school, and you have a family background in this town.
I do.
And so you guys went to do genealogy and meet with the Historical Society, and I know your sister is very into this. But you all went together.
We did.
And it was a family trip, just the three of you. And so I was jealous because you came back with lots and lots of stories about how this restaurant was fantastic and this road that we drove on was so twisty, and the town is beautiful.
And the woman at the Historical Society, whose name Katie, was immensely helpful. The Historical Society in Burlington, Iowa, the Des Moines County Historical Society, is in fact the building that used to be the public library, where my sister and my nephew, that I never met because he passed away before I was born. In fact, I'm middle named for him. Is now the Historical Society, but the glassware is the same, the floor is the same, and that's where they used to park my sister and my cousin when they were little bitty kids and let them play and talk or goof around and read books and so forth. And we came away with a portfolio of as yet before then unseen pictures of my parents.
Wow.
Of the grave site of my cousin, which we never knew where it was before, even if it was there. His obituary notice, pictures of my dad on stage when he was acting.
He was in local theater. Oh my
which
goodness.
is like, he was what now? That's not my dad. Yearbook photos, all kinds of stuff that the local historical society, the volunteer in charge of the historical society, worked her ass off to put together for us. It was wonderful and it was delightful. And yeah, we've been going there for years off and on. We would always stop there on the way to Colorado when we would go up for summer vacation. And we'd always pose on our grandparents' steps. Long after they moved, when my mom was still alive, we'd go out to check stuff out in Iowa and check in on her friends and so forth. We'd always stop there and take a picture of ourselves on those steps. And we'd always
when we stopped this time, I got to say, you got a little misty because
I did.
Time has passed.
It has passed. But you know what hasn't changed?
What?
Crapo Park hasn't changed.
Yeah.
These gorgeous park and so on and so forth. Anyway.
They're just beautiful parks and beautiful old homes, 19th century homes. I guess it's Burlington. This is very much like Port Townsend, Washington, which was supposed to be Seattle.
Yeah.
Burlington was supposed to be St. Louis and was built on spec by robber barons.
Yeah.
And so there's 19th century architecture. There's towns all over the country that are like that.
Yeah.
That were built by money in the 19th century of industrialists and was supposed to be a certain, this was going to attract business and then it went somewhere else. And so but what happens as a result is these 19th century buildings stay. Unlike, for instance, St. Louis, gets rebuilt every 30 years, right? And there's no more 19th century. There are some, but it's not the downtown preserved as a 19th century looking street.
Right. And Burlington is insanely hilly.
Yes.
Ridiculously hilly. And so you have these giant mansions that are now bed and breakfast or foundations or libraries or whatever on top of the hill. And you have these, I think I mentioned when we went last time and came back and I raved about it then, all these churches, all these incredibly beautiful, old fieldstone built churches competing with each other.
And so we drove there, and it's about a 3-hour drive. You can go through Peoria, Illinois, if you want to take mostly highway. But we took back roads because we had to go to a yarn store.
Yes.
So there was a yarn store in Macomb, Illinois on the way, and a very chatty, very kind yarn store owner, very clean store, very well organized. Did you know, I don't know if you know this, Driftglass, but we grow an awful lot of corn in Illinois and soybeans, and there were a lot of cornfields.
Lots of corn. Lots.
We were kind of shocked. I did tweet some of the pictures that of the roads that Siri put us on, that Google put us on, that are not 2-lane highways with a divide down the middle, just a road.
Yeah.
And you have to make your own lane. And if a car is coming at you, you have to pull over quite a bit. And This
is how you traveled before there were highways.
Right. And this is just
highways.
A road. And it's barely paved. And through cornfields. And we saw horses and cattle and all kinds of things. It was farm country.
Longhorns. We saw longhorn cattle.
We saw longhorns.
Yeah.
And then we started to see political signs.
Yeah.
Way out in the country, in empty fields and houses set far back from the road. And we were utterly shocked at how many Harris Walls signs were out in the country.
Middle of nowhere.
We were expecting nonstop Trump signs. And I'm not saying there were no Trump signs.
Oh, there were plenty. There were plenty. But
the critical mass of Harris Walls signs, it was present.
Yeah. On both sides of the Mississippi.
Yeah, on both sides of Mississippi. Quite a number in Burlington. And the McDonough County Democratic Party headquarters in Macomb, Illinois, on the corner, was decorated with a lot of joy. Banners.
It was great.
We're here.
It's a lot more welcoming than the one in Springfield, Illinois, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, and part of that is architecture.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're in tall office building downtown here, but They're in a little corner in a little former house of some sort.
Yeah.
And, water reclamation district office building that's built of wood. I don't know. But whatever it was, they had, festooned this Democratic Party headquarters.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
And there's I want to get into the story of the two Mary Millers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There are, as you know, this is, again, crossing the river, watching the political landscape being a lot different than we thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
You know that in Illinois, we have our own Mary Nazi Miller, who is definitely going to be reelected because she's running unopposed. And,
yeah.
Yeah, well, and because nobody wanted to sacrifice themselves on that funeral pyre, because the Illinois 15th, which is where she is an R+22 district.
Mm-hmm.
It is unwinnable by Democrats currently. And she won 71% of the vote in 2022.
But it's gerrymandered that way by Democrats to shove all of the Republicans into as few districts as possible.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So and when you concentrate and focus Republicans, you end up with Mary Nazi Miller. That's what happens.
Right.
But just across the river, there is another Mary Miller who is also awful. It's a thing. Now, she's not as bad as our Mary Miller, but she's kind of like Iowa awful. She believes in all the bad things. And for example, in 2020, she promised that infrastructure would be her main priority. Then in 2021, Miller Meeks, which is her full last name, voted against the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Now I'm wondering if there's any pictures of her with a giant check out there taking credit for shit. I bet there is.
Bet there is.
Now, her full name, to be fair, is Mariannetta Miller Meeks, and she's the Republican incumbent of the Iowa 1st Congressional District. And she ran and lost 3 times already in Iowa's 2nd. That's one district over. The incumbent there finally retired, and she won in 2020 and was redistricted into the 1st district, where she beat Democrat Christina Bohannon in 2022. So 2024 is actually a rematch between the two of them. And the Miller Meeks ads reflect how desperate and very ugly the GOP campaign is this year. We saw them on our TV, didn't we? Ugh. Caravans of murderers coming to kill your mother. And don't forget the transgender agenda is taking over our schools.
They want to castrate your child at school.
Maybe in prison. I don't know. Cats and dogs living together. This is the tone of everything.
Done.
But here's some good news. Bohannon's polling numbers, she's the Democrat, have gotten much more competitive, probably thanks to 2 different factors.
Robin Johnson is a political science professor at Monmouth College. He says a recent boost in polling for Bohannon is probably thanks to Vice President Kamala Harris starting her campaign. Higher voter turnout benefits down-ballot candidates like Bohannon.
There's been a lot more excitement and energy on the Democratic side.
Bohannon also got a boost in ad money. The House Majority PAC took out $2.3 million worth. Johnson says that's because Democrats would only need to flip 5 seats to secure a majority in the U.S. House.
Burlington is also, we were shocked to find out, a very young town full of young people.
Yes.
Under 35.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've only got 23,611 people or so as of the last head count. But there's so much going on there. There was a little art gallery with a concert going on Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
A movie house showing classic movies all weekend.
Nosferatu when we drove past it.
Yeah. The housing prices are very reasonable. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous, as you said. The park's amazing. Very well maintained, overlooking the river.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And we had great weather too.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, and top-notch historical society. And then we were told it was recommended to us to have breakfast at the Wake and Bake Breakfast Restaurant.
Yes.
Which is a marijuana-themed breakfast place.
Yeah.
And they have good grits. And we had some grits and they were good.
A big sprawling place that opens up onto the sidewalk with lots of outdoor cafe. Looks very
It was a former garage.
Yeah.
And turned into a bar and a breakfast. They serve breakfast in the morning and alcohol at night.
And
it's kind of a biker bar, I think, at nighttime. And right next door to it is a smoke shop called Dave's Not Here.
Now,
Dave's Not Here Smoke Shop.
And what's the punchline?
Dave's not here. What's the punchline?
Well, the punchline is in Iowa, marijuana.
Oh, and the punchline is Iowa marijuana is illegal.
Yeah. Yep.
And so Driftglass went in. We wanted, most of you people know that Junior Dude's first name is David. So we thought, oh, Dave's not here, smoke shop, T-shirt
Perfect.
would be a perfect birthday gift for Junior Dude.
Birthday's coming up. Yep.
Birthday's coming up. So they didn't have a T-shirt for him. They had a sticker, a free sticker.
They were
but
sold
didn't
out of the
have-
T-shirts.
Sold out of T-shirts. We're sorry. Keep in touch, whatever. But we asked the owner, Driftglass said, I don't want to be indelicate here, but I'm aware that marijuana is illegal in Iowa. And she just held up her hand and said, not to worry.
We're doing fine.
Right. We're doing fine because across the river in Illinois, it's legal. And when we drove home and drove across that bridge over the Mississippi to Illinois, what's the first billboard you see?
Hell yeah.
I thought it would be, it is when you're driving from St. Louis across the river, the first billboard you see is welcome to Illinois where abortion is legal and safe.
Yep.
But driving across in Burlington, what is it, Driftglass?
Marijuana dispensary.
Yeah.
In fact, we got a little, not lost, but diverted from our trip because I asked the Google, tell me where the nearest marijuana dispensary is because I wanted to know how close to the river it was. And it basically rerouted us to
it did.
Because,
to go through to the marijuana dispensary. Yes.
This isn't the way we came. Well, we're heading to the dispensaries now. But how this is how I mentioned when we were there, this is how Howard Street worked in Chicago.
Yeah.
Because Evanston is the world headquarters of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. WCTU was right across the street from me when I worked up there. And so Evanston for decades was dry. You could not buy a drink. Evanston also has Northwestern University in it. So it has this inherent conflict of college students who want to party in a city, town, et cetera, that's dry. So just over the border on Howard Street and further south, a little bit further south in Devon, tons of bars and tons of liquor stores because they know what students would like to have. Same thing with Iowa and Illinois. Right over the river, there's this wonderful dispensary land full of beautiful things. And the woman who sells the stuff is doing really well, really well. The one
that's selling bongs and tie-dye T-shirts and all kinds of paraphernalia legally in Burlington is doing a very good business. She had an extremely nice car.
She did. That she had to bring to Springfield because its oil change is proprietary. Let me just put it that way.
She has to have the oil changed at a very specific dealer. Only. So yeah.
Now, two more things. One is I took my wife down Snake Alley because she wouldn't believe me when I said what she believed me just fine. But it's like, holy crap, this really is scary. Like terrifying. It is and you don't want to drive in this town during winter, during ice anywhere because you just they shut the place down. But it's a wild ride. It's a tourist attraction. It's one way. It's 100 and something years old, made out of brick. And it's a fun drive, and I kicked myself for not making it the final exam on the kids' driver's test when I was teaching them how to drive.
It's very much like San Francisco in terms of being a curvy road, but it's even narrower. Much narrower. At
pitch at like a 30-degree angle. It's very nearly, it's amazing. And Jesus Lord, high school football.
Oh, my God.
High school football. I thought our news was, sport and weather heavy, as all local news is. But we got to watching, and it was an appendix to the news. But it was part of the news.
Friday night. Let's be fair. Friday Night Lights, that's what they do.
Every high school in the viewing area, every single one of them, of the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of high, got their own time, got their own 2 minutes on television. And I got to say, the camera work was impeccable. Every one of them was shot with professional level competence. Every one of them had an announcer. Every one of them had a play of the game. Every one of them had the player of the game. And it didn't matter if the team got crushed 72-0.
And there were some of those.
And there were some of those. There were just wild mismatches. But that they got their 2 minutes on television, and it went on and on. And I'm like, well, this is going to be over soon. Nope. Kept going on and on and on. And if
we
it got
couldn't
boring,
believe they were giving 2 full minutes to every single game from the Quad Cities all the way through Burlington, almost to St. Louis.
And
it was a very wide TV audience. Yeah.
And when things got boring, they went to a coach who would explain it's all about the teamwork, or it's a rebuilding year and seniors next year, blah, blah, blah. When that got boring, they went to Twitter and read tweets about what they were talking about on
high
television.
School football.
Yeah. All while grilling burgers and it was fun, harmless.
There were four local sports reporters. This is 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
At a tailgate with a sponsored grill.
Yeah.
With the sponsor's name on the grill, where they're cooking hot dogs and hamburgers at 11 o'clock at night,
and having a few.
And having a few beers, I'm pretty sure. But they were still professional, knowing every team. And now let's talk about North Side versus blah, whatever, the Cougars.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was a storied rivalry. Let's go to the tape. And there's 2 minutes of tape about this one high school football game, and then they go on to the next one.
And they have it all down.
It's a whole show. And you know that this is watched by a lot of people there.
Right.
And I find that comforting, because I would much rather have the storied rivalry be either high school football or even NFL, rather than, who's going to kill a FEMA worker this week.
Yeah, that's the thing. Taken all in all, it gave us a vision of what middle America could look like.
Right.
If you just took the poison out of it.
Yeah.
If it was just high school football, little towns along the river with young people living their lives and enjoying their lives, pot, let's face it, on both sides of the river. Come on. Abortion on both sides of the river. Come on. And
casinos on both sides of the river.
There's a lot of casinos going on there. But again, this is a city of 23,000 people and change, with a lot going on, bustling, joyful, interesting. And we had a great time when we were there, just overnight.
We were old people, but we had a good time.
We had a good time. And you go to the Historical Society, ask them about Wake and Bake, and the younger woman working there, volunteer, says, I live downtown. I can recommend them, but they get pretty full on a Saturday morning, so you might have to go
try the grits.
Else. Yeah, try the grits.
Yeah.
And it was a vision of what the Midwest could be if you could just leach the poison out of it.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Yes.
And have people like Mary Miller Meeks arguing about fuel costs and agriculture shit.
Yeah.
What a wonderful world it would be.
Arguing for the farm bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Like our congresswoman is doing. That's pretty much all she's doing these days.
I know. And people love her. So it really is, not only can we report on the ground about lots of Harris wall signs and lots of cool stuff going on there, but a real true vision of what could be possible if we could just get the poison, the Republican poison, the fucking Republican poison out of our body politic.
You know where else Democrats are feeling pretty good right now, Driftglass? It's the villages in Florida.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're going to win, but this story really made me feel good. The Associated Press reports they are beginning to realize that they have a voice and they can use it, said Diane Foley, president of the Villages Democratic Club, which has seen its membership nearly double since the 2020 election cycle to around 1,500 people. Prior to that time, she noted, Democrats have been inclined to be quiet and to not broadcast their political preferences because we were so overwhelmed by the Republican Party. Parades of golf carts decorated in support of Harris have rolled through the streets, and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff recently paid a visit.
Wow.
Damn. Meanwhile, Democrats opting to wear a T-shirt or put up a lawn sign in favor of Harris have had neighbors approach them with relief, saying, we thought we were the only ones.
And that's so important. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we got out of the Harris Walls sign tour was, you're not alone. You're not alone. There are others like you out there who are on the same page, and we're feeling kind of like we might be able to pull this off. So just hang in there and keep up the fight. This was also the week that the New York goddamn Times was finally pressured into acknowledging that Donald Trump has something maybe wrong in the brain box. So keep working the refs, people. Keep the pressure on, because it actually does work. Now, this article was as detached and aloof as they could make it, because they weren't calling Trump nuts. They were just reporting that a computer analysis of Trump's words seemed to suggest that perhaps, blah, 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 blah. This is from Brother Charlie Pearson, Esquire. Quote, finally, the New York Times is getting around to Trump's mental status. The damn truth has been lying out there on the ground for at least 3 years, and far too few people picked it up, unquote. Jennifer Rubin, conservative Jennifer Rubin in the Washington Post, taking shots at the Times, finally noticing that Trump had lost his mind was wild, but she is on the right track. Quote, they know it, they've known it, they've not reported on it. This does not cure their journalistic malpractice. It's a confession, unquote. Hell
right.
Yeah. Keep up the pressure, folks. Keep it up.
This was also found in the Washington Post this week. Quote, officials face anti-Semitic attacks over Hurricane Helene response. The report finds Elon Musk's Twitter X is fueling falsehoods and conspiracy theories that risk undermining rescue efforts and preparations for Hurricane Milton, unquote. Amazing. And one of the immediately observable effects of the Times finally, grudgingly, getting around to reporting what everyone else could see right in front of them was the sudden spate of, the New York Times said, stories. Because if the Times said it, then we can too.
Mm-hmm.
As we've talked about before, this is the Times' real power to set the agenda and act as assignment editor for the rest of the legacy media. And really, publications all around the world use the New York Times as, what are we going to cover today?
Exactly.
And I was grateful that Mary Trump pushed back on applauding the New York Times for doing this stupid story, because it was below the fold. It wasn't even on the front page online. I had to dig for it when I wanted to refer to it in a post at Crooks and Liars, or when Amato wanted to write it up. I couldn't find it right away.
It was and we've talked about this before as well. It's the story they do so they can say in the future that we did a story about it.
Right.
And no, we were very fair. We did one story about this that time. You see?
And so you had to search the front page of the New York Times website to find it. And we didn't give you any help in that regard.
So your centrist uncle can say, no, remember that time they wrote about Trump saying being crazy that one time? Yeah. Anyway, maybe a news roundup is how we can round this out, Blue Gal.
Yeah. But look, I just want to add, all of these weakling outlets that have been decimated by hedge funds are entirely dependent on the New York Times for what is the story today.
Yep.
Because they have no reporters. Yes, let's do a news roundup. Remember back in 2020, I know that's the past, but...
Oh, no.
And when it was almost impossible to find COVID-19 tests to keep you and your family safe?
I do,
According to a new book by Bob Woodward, Trump was sending COVID tests to his very good friend, Vladimir Putin. The Donald Trump who gave those rare and valuable U.S. COVID-19 tests to Putin is the same Donald Trump who tried to punish people in California, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all blue-leaning states and territories, by withholding or limiting disaster relief from them. He released aid for victims of California's wildfires when he learned that some of them were Trump supporters.
Every Republican accusation is a confession.
Yep.
Hey, here's more information about the tidal wave of Republican disinformation about FEMA and hurricane relief. This is from Politico. My God, Politico's even getting in on it. Quote, the worst I have ever seen. Disinformation chaos hammers FEMA. Conspiracies and rumors are hurting recovery and relief efforts, warned FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. Misinformation is beginning to take a toll on hurricane responders and survivors alike. The head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency said Tuesday, as another massive storm headed for the Southeast. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell said the swirl of false conspiracy theories around Hurricane Helene is dissuading survivors from seeking help and hurting morale among responders. Many of the falsehoods can be traced back to Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and his supporters, who have baselessly accused federal responders of diverting disaster money to immigrants. Elon Musk, the Tesla CEO and ascendant GOP megadonor, has also amplified false claims of feds interfering with hurricane recovery. At a separate event Tuesday, President Joe Biden, yes, he's still president, yes, he's still awesome, also warned of the threat of disinformation. And he said it was un-American to spread disaster falsehoods. This is Joe Biden talking now. Those who do it to try to damage the administration. Joe Biden said at a hurricane briefing at the White House, we can take care of ourselves, but it misleads people. It puts people in circumstances where they panic, where they really, really, really worry and think we're not being taken care of. It's un-American. It really is. People are scared to death. People know their lives are at stake, unquote.
Meanwhile, as Trump hides from the media, refuses to debate, and chickens out of his scheduled 60 Minutes interview, the first presidential candidate to do so since they started doing these interviews in 1968, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are barnstorming the media. All different kinds of media, which is making the dying dinosaur legacy media angry and afraid. Remember, kids, work the refs.
Do it.
And she's doing really well.
She is.
Here is a short clip from the hour she did on the Call Her Daddy podcast this week.
I do want to clarify something. In the debate, former President Trump claimed that some states are executing babies after birth. Can you just clarify?
That is not happening anywhere in the United States. It is not happening, and it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie that he is suggesting that, can you imagine? Can you imagine? He is suggesting that women in their 9th month of pregnancy are electing to have an abortion. Are you kidding? That is so outrageously inaccurate, and it's so insulting to suggest that that would be happening and that women would be doing that. It's not happening anywhere. This guy is full of lies. I mean, I just have to be very candid with you. You know, so in my career, from the time I got out of law school through most of my career as a prosecutor, I understood that the words that I spoke and what I did with those words would be the difference between whether somebody was charged with a crime or went to prison, maybe prison for life. When I was Attorney General, I was the top law enforcement officer of the biggest state in this country. And I was acutely aware that the words I spoke could be the difference between whether a corporation was in business or out of business, that the words I spoke could move markets. The idea that someone is not only so careless and irresponsible and reckless, but out and out lies to create fear and division in our country, and thinks he should be president of the United States standing behind the seal of the president of the United States, using the microphone that comes with that, and using that voice and those words in such an irresponsible, and that's mild, way. And this is why this election matters. There's
Another clip from this amazing interview was highlighted on Twitter X by the account Wu-Tang is for the children.
You should follow Wu-Tang is for children. You should follow them.
You should follow
great.
them, yes.
Yeah.
Who commented, my bingo card didn't have Kamala Harris stuffing Sarah Huckabee in a locker on the podcast Call Her Daddy.
I want to ask you a question because again, in speaking about women, there has been a very big fixation on biological children, stepchildren, women that have children versus women that don't have children. It's like a huge point somehow of this entire election, right? I saw the governor of Arkansas said, my kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble. How did that make you feel?
I don't think she understands that there are a whole lot of women out here who, one, are not aspiring to be humble. Two, a whole lot of women out here who have a lot of love in their life, family in their life, and children in their life. And I think it's really important for women to lift each other up. You know, I'll tell you, Alex, one of the things that I have really enjoyed about where the discussion has gone, one of the places it's gone, we have our family by blood, and then we have our family by love. And I have both. And I consider it to be a real blessing. And I have two beautiful children, Cole and Ella, who call me Mamala. We have a very modern family. My husband's ex-wife is a friend of mine, you know, and also I'll tell you, look, I'm a child of divorced parents. And when I started dating Doug, my husband, I was very thoughtful and sensitive to making sure that until I knew that our relationship was something that was going to be real, I didn't want to form a relationship with the kids and then walk away from that relationship. My own experience tells me that, children form attachments and you really want to be thoughtful about it. And so I waited to meet the kids, and they are my children. And I love those kids to death. And family comes in many forms. And I think that increasingly, all of us understand that, this is not the 1950s anymore. Families come in all kinds of shapes and forms.
So how well did Vice President Kamala Harris do? She did so well that washed-up wingnut dingbat Megyn Kelly lost her damn mind over it on her own weird little podcast. This is from the Daily Beast. Quote, conservative pundit Megyn Kelly raged over Vice President Kamala Harris's controversial, say controversial one more goddamn time, controversial decision to appear on the women-oriented podcast Call Her Daddy this week, calling the press tour stop the, quote, presidential equivalent of a visit to the Amsterdam red light district, unquote, which are brave words from a former Fox prostitute, frankly.
Yeah, who twirled for Roger.
Twirl for me. Yes, Roger. You know what it's like to take money for those things, don't you,
yes.
Megyn Kelly?
Yep.
Kelly kicked off the Monday session of her Sirius XM show with strong words for the Democratic nominee, who would be the first woman to sit in the White House if she wins in November. Quote, I want to start today with the total abandonment of American women, Kelly said, repeating at a howl, total abandonment. Nearly yelling, Kelly expressed her indignation with Harris's decision to appear on the show, which is the second most popular podcast in the United States and first among women, according to Spotify, given that its bread and butter is the sexual and emotional lives of women. The latest episode marks its first foray into politics, unquote.
And may we add that they invited Donald Trump to appear on their podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You think he's going to go on Call Her Daddy?
Not while Nick Fuentes is around with a microphone.
Yeah. How many women have accused him of what he admitted to on the Access Hollywood tape?
Sure. Well, he doesn't need women's votes, honey. He doesn't need women voting for him.
He's sure doubling down on not needing women's votes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, Elon Musk's mommy is having a psychotic break on her son's website, Twitter, and that explains a lot. This is his mother, May Musk. Quote, the Democrats have given us another option. You don't have to register to vote. On Election Day, have 10 fake names. Go to 10 polling booths and vote 10 times. That's 100 votes. That's actually 1,000 votes, but, math is clearly not her strong suit. And it's not illegal, she writes. Maybe we should work the system too, unquote. Her son's own community notes feature betrayed her almost immediately with a note reading, quote, this is in fact illegal, unquote. Followed by a link to the appropriate U.S. Criminal Code statute. Not that this will slow her down one bit. In fact, it is rumored that this is Mama Musk giving her son advice on delivering a speech she has specially prepared for him.
The speech is short, but it's the most rousing speech I've ever read. It's been worked on here and in Russia on and off for over 8 years. Rallying a nation of television viewers into hysteria to sweep us up into the White House with powers that will make martial law seem like anarchy.
On Friday, Florida Senator Marco Rubio was calling the government employment data fake, alleging their jobs report was bullshit. On Tuesday, he told Florida residents they should definitely believe government data, specifically NOAA forecasts and heat evacuation alerts. He is one of the new generation of Republican leadership, according to Laura Ingraham.
We're looking forward to the new generation of Republican leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lifeboat building ain't working for you, Laura.
No, we're coming for your lifeboats, Laura.
We're coming for your lifeboats.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Vice President Harris proposed help for the sandwich generation, a Medicare benefit for home care. She announced it on The View, which, women watch, by the way.
Uh-huh.
And this just drove the Sunday show bookers and hosts raving mad. Not meet the press?
To your point about being in the sandwich generation, there are so many people in our country who are right in the middle, They're taking care of their kids and they're taking care of their aging parents. And it's just almost impossible to do it all, especially if they work. We're finding that so many are then having to leave their job, which means losing a source of income. Not to mention the emotional stress. And so what I am proposing is that basically what we will do is allow Medicare to cover in-home health care.
Fine.
And because we're talking about these kinds of things where it's just about helping an aging parent or person, prepare a meal, put their sweater on.
Yes.
And it's about dignity for that individual. It's about independence for that individual.
Yes.
I mean, people are of declining skills to some extent, but their dignity their pride has not declined. No. They want to stay in their home. They don't want to go somewhere else. Plus, for the family to send them to a residential care facility, to hire somebody is so expensive.
And wipes you out.
And I'll just say, but here's the other thing about it. People say, well, how are you going to pay for it? Here's the thing. Here's how we pay for it. Part of what I also intend to do is allow Medicare to continue to negotiate drug prices against these big pharmaceutical companies, which means we are going to save Medicare the money because we're not going to be paying these high prices, and those resources are best then put in a way that helps a family like the one you are describing.
Which you have already done.
Which we have already done with insulin. So it can be done.
Meanwhile, in local news, guess what's on the ballot in Clinton County and 6 other Illinois counties? Here's a hint. It didn't work the last time anyone tried it. This is the headline in the Jacksonville Journal-Courier. Grievances with Chicagoland driving some counties to explore separating from state. Oh no. 7 counties in the state, including Jersey, Greene, and Calhoun, will have a non-binding question on the ballots for November 5th general election about exploring the possibility of breaking away from Illinois. The ballot item will ask voters whether their county board will, quote, correspond with the boards of other counties of Illinois outside of Cook about the possibility of separating from Cook County to form a new state and to seek admission to the union as such, subject to the approval of the people, unquote. First, you can definitely tell this is written by a small town, downstate newspaper because, believe me, if it were written by a larger Chicago area newspaper, the headline would have been 7 tiny backwards Illinois counties tired of living in the 21st century. Second, damn betcha the Republican majorities in these counties are dead set against statehood for Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. You just know it.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Feel free to write us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, Go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
Please don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is, in fact, our job. If you can spare $5 a month, please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/proleftpod. Please also share our show on social media. It's a big help. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to it. We really do thank you for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would like you to sign their petition to secede from this stupid timeline.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional F Podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.